Hello, welcome to this exciting edition of the Evening Review. My name is Taiwan Jabala, your host for tonight. Let's quickly look at the front page of today's Namibian Sun. So tonight we are excited to be joined in the studio by the leader of the Landless People's Movement, Bernard Swartbooi, to talk to us about a lot of things that have been making headlines lately in the papers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You, where do I even start? You know, you've been this a lot. Yeah. So we haven't spoken really since you've gotten to Parliament as LPM. So congratulations.
Thank you, Tracy.
And then, of course, you have made a mark of your own, in your own way there. There's been a lot of confrontations, heated moments. Is that the LPM strategy to get under the opponent's skin? So what is happening there?
Tracy, you must remember that the arms of state that we have, as is the case in many republics, is three.
Yeah.
You have the judiciary, you have the executive, and you have the legislature. The judiciary is, in as much as with difficulties with it, functions on its own, is able to operate with relative ability of its own and has been recognized as such. The executive does its own part. The problem that we have had over the past 30 years is that parliamentary democracy and the recognition of that arm of state as an important central pillar of our statehood has been reduced. And as a matter of fact, that the country basically has substantively only the judiciary and the executive.
Yeah.
Why? Parliament has been reduced because the executive dominates Parliament.
Yeah.
And even those members from the ruling party that are substantive members of Parliament have not been able to exercise the oversight functions of the executive as they should have been. And you could also say, to a large extent, that deterioration of the prestige, the status, and the constitutional mandate of Parliament has been weakened. And it has, in many instances, become a fairly disinteresting, weak body.
Yeah.
When we, after getting in Parliament, sat down to strategize what our approach would be, we said, the relevance of this important institution of the state must emerge.
Yeah.
And in emerging, that place must have strong debates, strong intellectual input. Alternative Party, LPM, should also not just complain about the issues, but also provide solutions to those in government to implement better policies. That has really been our strategy.
Yeah.
The tactics to achieve that is where your question is based.
Yes.
Now, one of the first things that we've always said is, first, as a party, we recognize we are going into a corrupt parliament.
Yeah.
Secondly, we recognize that you have a ruling party with 63 members there.
Yeah.
If you go in there behaving as a Catholic nun or as a gentleman politician, you will not have anybody listening to you.
Yeah.
You can't talk to those in power in a very subtle way, in idiomatic expressions and in ways that flatter them in order to achieve your goals. We have young people from Oshakati, Oluno, from Kurenkuru, Ondangwa, Opuwo, from Khobabas, Keetmanshoop, Windhoek. They don't have jobs.
Yes.
They don't have opportunities to live a decent life. We have young people that have lost business opportunities because the economy has crashed.
Yeah.
We have so many of our communities in the north that have been invaded by Chinese business empires.
Yes.
When we go as LPM into parliament, we represent the collective of these constituents. And their problems are not easy. Their complaints are not soft complaints.
Yeah.
The challenges that our constituents have to us are existential challenges that require LPM to speak with every strength in our body, with every intellectual capability in our sense. You would recognize that once a political party has this extraordinary numbers in relation to other political parties, arrogance starts to set in. The unwillingness to listen, to internalize, and hopefully to accommodate the views of other political parties disappears. This is what has happened with the ruling party for 30 years. And we have to fight that narrative and say, here we debate, here we engage.
Yes.
And the engagements may not always be very decent, very solemn, very calculated in terms of the vocabulary that is used. It is tough. You have to have the energy to say this point matters to us. Really.
I understand. I understand. So, and then the speaker, your party had a press conference last week reflecting on how the speaker has been presiding over that level of energy.
Absolutely.
You are not very pleased with how he handled matters.
Twice when I was in Swartbooi, the colleagues in the opposition, particularly in Muharukwa and Venani, as well as Kabakatora, were complaining about the uneven-handedness with which Professor Kachavivi has been dealing with them. I mean, he would become so infuriated by colleagues on the left-hand side, but would ignore the challenges from the right-hand side, from Swartbooi. When I went in, that same experience was there. And I said, but this is what colleagues were complaining about, and there is merit in their complaints. Professor Kachavivi, for instance, in the argument that I have had, is very interesting how he sits in the same house at the same time and only hears the alleged misconduct of LPM. And doesn't hear at the same time the misconduct as alleged of the other colleague. He never sees a provocation that produces a reaction. He only sees the reaction, only rules on the reaction, only tries to enforce discipline on the basis of reaction. And the legal colleagues there, we have consulted them and said, but this is not how you rule. You've got to be the presiding officer of the National Assembly. You're not in a Swartbooi party Central Committee meeting. And you don't certainly therefore treat other members of parliament who are not Swartbooi as guests or as intruders or as at the pleasure of the ruling party. No, these are all substantive members of parliament. And you've got to say, in terms of rule A and B, Swartbooi, you're out of order, and let us then, if we contest it, do so in a way that is also responsible. But he projects an image that his ultimate responsibility is to the ruling party. And when you do that as a presiding officer, you will have challenges because it begins to demonstrate incompetence of a very large scale. You would see, I mean, in terms of the rules, once a debate has started, once a motion is debated, You allow that debate to continue and allow the mover of the motion, for instance, in the case of reconciliation debate,
yes,
to have the right of reply.
yeah, yeah.
But Kachevivi allows the motion to go on. It is almost at the end of it, the reconciliation motion, and they go to a SWAPO caucus. The SWAPO caucus recognizes that SWAPO has lost the arguments.
Yeah.
They come back and say to Jerry, kill the debate.
Yeah.
And we're saying, Speaker, hold on. This is not the point at which you now say, let's vote on the motion to be debated or not.
Yeah.
This is not the point. You should have done it before. And therefore you become jurisprudentially completely incapable of maintaining a particular decorum of the House and of projecting the sense that you are the speaker of all of us, because you are not the speaker of SWAPO. Then what has happened to us? Yeah. When we then walked out, SWAPO then tells its people, come and fill the benches because they are empty. So we said, let's allow them to go back in. When we then got back in, you know what the speaker says? He says, remember the chairs, the seats that we have your name tag.
Yeah.
So it's where you sit.
Yeah.
To Evan Jabela, this is where your seat is. The speaker says, please, those members of parliament that have just come back now, please leave the chambers so that we can sort out sitting arrangement. And we are saying, no, we are substantively assigned to these seats.
Yeah. So
how do we, it's ours. How do we leave the chambers? Because he doesn't want to call any SWAPO person to order. Even to adjourn the House, he would want, and he would look around to see whether SWAPO agrees. And this is the problem that we have. Once you have a speaker like that, you are killing parliamentary democracy. Because one of the things that has now happened is furniture allowances of members of parliament have been taken away. It's been taken away. He's not opposing that. The Minister of Finance unilaterally changes conditions of service of parliamentarians in order to save money. He has not asked whether furniture allowances of members of the executive have been taken away. He has not asked that. And this is the type of inconsistency in which Speaker and other people actually feel that they basically represent SWAPO, and that the ranking within SWAPO must also be the ranking within Parliament, and that ranking should be respected by political party members who are not from SWAPO party. And this has been the problem. The other day, to make one more point by virtue of illustration, my good friend Bohamba Shifeta says, what is DTA? It's a conglomeration of puppets. He says that. There's no ruling made that, please, that language is unparliamentary. Other members of parliament sit and swear at those of us who are LPM. And the cameras are strategically controlled not to show when other members are swearing at us. Even the colleague that Yvonne Downsap now is talking about gender-based violence instance where the colleague from NEV has been misbehaving with one of the SWAPO female MPs. Nobody's asking what provoked the colleague. Somebody swore at that colleague, but nobody's asking what happened. They just see the reaction. So the opposition is really placed in a circumstance where SWAPO and its cohorts wants to drive a narrative that we are unruly, we have no respect for the decorum of the House, we don't respect the rules of the House, and therefore they must deal with us. This is really that Namibians must be awake and alive to that. We are trying to do our best, but the speaker is incompetent. He intoxicates the entire system of parliamentary democracy in a very negative way.
Indeed. So we watch Parliament from TV, and like you alluded to, we can't see and hear everything that is being said. When I see Bernardo Swartbooi ripping off his jacket and throwing it on the desk and pointing at some guy up there, what is it that he could have said that infuriated you so much?
Oh, a number of things. A number of things. But the bottom line here, Toys, is that type of conduct occurs when the presiding officer is not just and fair. When the presiding officer allows insults to be hurled, finger pointing to be made, and direct threats to be made against your person, and the speaker doesn't say, please,
don't do
withdraw that, don't do that. This is what happens. The colleague was basically insulting, harassing, and saying all sorts of things, and basically saying he's going to basically deal with me. And when the decorum of the House has to be looked at, it's not just the responsibility of the opposition and the alternative to keep quiet and therefore keep the decorum. Times have changed. We are challenging the ruling party and its members word by word, paragraph by paragraph, issue by issue, conduct by conduct, and that has never happened. And that is what frustrates these people. Because if you say something to us, we'll say it back. The president was there. The president said to me, I'm older than your mother. Normally, in the previous parliaments, nobody would stand up and inform the president, as I did, that my mother had passed on. Don't do it. Later, I'm told he expressed regret, which is fair and well. Nobody would also have expected the president to be challenged as he was challenged. And I think the speaker, if I were him, as supposedly a mature human being, in the absence of a committee system, but also to protect the decorum of the House, would have called chief whips and say, colleagues, can we find ways really to coexist in this chamber? He has not called any meeting of that sort. He has actually been one of those people that wanted to initiate a process of disciplining me through the Privileges Committee, which he chairs. And then they wrote letters through the lawyers there trying to intimidate and threaten me. So what we have is a speaker that basically wants to drive a narrative that Swartbooi is the victim here, and that some of these people that have come in are so rude, they are so uncouth, and they are indisciplined. Reality is this, Toys. In the budget debate, we were able to successfully demonstrate the inconsistencies and the lack of planning and the lack of proper projections and the inability of this government to pull this country forward. We did that successfully. They didn't like it. Came then the national reconciliation debate. We were able to demonstrate that Swartbooi is not serious with genuine, long-lasting and people-centered national reconciliation. That just not only deals with black and white, but deals with black-on-black questions of reconciliation. We were able to demonstrate that. How is it that you are able to meet former military generals of Swati F based in South Africa, white men, but you are unable to reconcile, sit on the same table with former Kufut and Swati F members who are your fellow black brothers? We were able to demonstrate these inconsistencies. We were able to demonstrate quite successfully that in debating this matter of national reconciliation, the presumption that Swartbooi makes that the wounds of the liberation struggle are healed, that is a wrong presumption, because so many people still want to hear what happened to over 3,200 of their families. Swartbooi could not handle it. And because they cannot handle it, the old instinctive Swartbooi that placed people in Lubango, that instinct kicks in. And it kicks in a number of ways. You can now see the increasing strategic militarization of the premises of Parliament. Yesterday we were there, a number of Defence Force people were there, and we were asking, why are they militarizing Parliament? You can see the numerous numbers of police forces deployed at Parliament these days. And once we start to speak, you must see how these police are energized, some of them, to try to stop us. And we've asked the Inspector General, are the police there to protect Swartbooi MPs against which threat? Or all of us against a determined threat? They couldn't answer us. So as members of Parliament from other political parties, we are being intimidated every day. Our people, when they go there to us, those that work for other political parties, they are harassed and humiliated by police forces at Parliament. They must take out their shoes, they must take out their clothing, but it's never done to Swartbooi people. And we have raised it 4 times now. It is not stopping. So the public out there must recognize that when they see conduct in the chamber, there is a longer chain of actions that we are asking very kindly, that we are debating very kindly, that we are putting down in writing to please check this conduct, please desist from this conduct, and there is no change happening. And that type of cumulative effect comes to bear on every party represented in Parliament, with the exception of Swartbooi. Of course, Swartbooi is stressing because of the loss of debating capacity. Other people say Swartbooi should have had more educated young people, but they have. They have doctors in their ranks. They have lawyers in their ranks. They are just unable to defend 30 years of continued inequality, increased poverty, and a colossal and catastrophic unemployment that has rocked our young people. Last week I got a report in the North how young men and women are so frustrated. They don't get tenders anymore. They don't have a job anymore. And we have said twice, in a very difficult circumstance, and we have written to Swartbooi, how do you allow twice Ministry of Agriculture to put an advert wanting 48 tractor operators, and this is exclusively for residents of Umsati region. In the north there is Kaoko, in the north there is Umsati, in the north there is Ohangwena, in the north there is Oshana, in the north there is Oshikoto, Kavango East, Kavango West. Why are 48 jobs reserved for one region? Does that region collect taxes exclusively? And I've asked the minister in the letter, I hope it has been delivered. In terms of Article 41, 41 or 40, 40, Section L, every minister has a responsibility to be vigilant and vigorous against tribalism, racism, and all of these things. I've asked him, how have you allowed an advert to go out where 13 regions are excluded and only one region must benefit from 48 positions in government, which is a unitary state?
I saw that. Because I thought, the best way you can do it maybe is to say, even if you reserve 50% for the region, perhaps at the very least, and then the other 50% is for anyone else. But to make it exclusive like that,
this is problematic, and we know that there are other communities as we speak about land, the Ombalantu, the Ombaja, they are struggling with questions of land. And so, as a representative of all our people, we are raising these issues in a conscientious manner. I don't want Namibians to lose hope with this narrative of disrespect that these colleagues are pushing around, and think for 1 minute that we are a party that wants to sort of create commotion and so on. We are responsible men and women who have a political agenda to achieve, to liberate our own young people and to fight for their future. There is the philosopher that says the new is always born. It is hidden somewhere in the present, in the past, and germinates in the future. I think twice. When I look at the social media engagement of our young people from all across the country, I want to thank them particularly because I see the future is germinating very significantly and strongly. When young people consistently get interested and excited about politics, when Namibians are now on a daily basis twice following with care and dedication the extensive deliberations in National Assembly, it pleases me, and it gives me hope that something we are doing in that house is correct. Because for the first time perhaps young people feel someone is speaking up for them, someone is standing up for them. And whether this person removes a jacket all of that represents the times, the frustrations, the anguish, the uncertainties that 30 years of SWAPO has brought for many young men who have a 3-year-old child, who have a 5-year-old child. Where will his bread and milk for the child come from tomorrow? Where will the payment for water and electricity come from? Where will the money to pay for the house come from? This is the anguish that our young people sit with every day. Even when they are educated, they are jobless. That is what we are fighting for, and will continue to be strong for our young people.
Indeed. Now, speaking of being strong, Mr. Swartbooi, the issue of Sam Nujoma calling him a thug and a liar, was that in the heat of the moment because of the series of events, provocative events, and then you lost your cool? Or is that the genuine perception that you have of the old man?
Toys, you must recognize, and we are always trying by all means necessary to balance our views. Whatever our views about Sam Nujoma are, you can't deny his contribution in ensuring that this country eventually got its freedom and independence, at least political independence, that institutions were set up, and that there was the beginning of building what we hoped would be a sustained process, but nonetheless the beginning of building a nation. So Nujoma would always have a double legacy, just like most political leaders have. Whether you speak of Nelson Mandela, the young ones recently were saying he sold out. But there is that recognition that Mandela made a good contribution. You go to Robert Mugabe, you would recognize his outstanding contribution, but you'd also recognize his failures. And so it goes for Nyerere, for Kwame Nkrumah, and for all of these leaders. And people, and I think Kadanambo said it very well, people should appreciate, Toys, that when you have a political debate and discussion, in bringing in either authors or political individuals to strengthen your argument, those instruments that you use to strengthen your argument have to be interrogated.
Yes, indeed.
When Sioka brought in Nujoma and spoke in particular about the book where others wavered, the response of Henny was essentially, that's a lie. We've read that book. And therefore he said it's a lie. Now, we have, in respect of Lubango, personally also and broadly in the organization, lost so many of our families. Some of them were victims of Lubango, some of them survived, they are here, but there are so many of my own relatives and the relatives of many people in LPM that have never returned. Nujoma, they have never answered on this issue. Nujoma came back and said, no Namibian will not have land in this country. Every Namibian will have a piece of land. It is the same Nujoma that comes to the second land conference, forgetting perhaps what he had said in previous years, and says, those of you that want ancestral land, you are not going to get your land back. That cannot be anything else but a betrayal of a very strong trust given to this man by all of us. Remember, I was also a SWAPO member. And therefore, Kadenambo correctly poses the question, whose interest does Nujoma represent? If he continues, and if SWAPO continues to want Nujoma to be respected first and recognized as father of the nation, should the same Nujoma not have spoken passionately about the cries of those children who are outside the house, who are not in the house, who are hungry, who are destitute? And therefore, any time that the Nujoma name is brought in, we will be hard, we will be analyzing his legacy, and we will be using vocabulary that probably is not appropriate for some of them. But this is precisely what Parliament must do. If you have a different opinion about Nujoma, ask the Speaker for the floor and articulate why you think Nujoma is an angel. And those of us that have a particular view about Nujoma will ask the Speaker for the floor and articulate why we feel he is a demon. And that is Parliament. But after we debate there, We can greet each other and laugh and so on and so on. But in saying the types of things that we have said, we are not taking away any positive contribution that Neoma may have made to this country. We are saying that there are areas in his years of leadership that Neoma has failed so badly that it qualifies him to be associated with certain vocabulary.
Yes.
Does it mean we hate the person? Never. Does it mean we do not recognize the contributions that he has made in various areas? Never. However, we will not back down from expressing ourselves about what we think of Neoma.
Yes.
Where are the children? 3,200. What is their fate? Neoma should have said, look, this is a war. We made mistakes. Please forgive us. This is what happened to your children. And have the families allow to have closure to this issue. Maybe to put up shrines in Angola, put up another shrine here in Namibia, highlighting the names of those people that never returned. Go back to those that survived from Lubango and say, how do we deal with your pain? There is psychological issues you need to deal with. Can we assist you? How do we look at going forward some members of your families, because some of you will not be able to provide for your families.
Yes.
There were also twice other people that survived Kasinga, some of our families, that were then again put in Lubango dungeons. And we are saying that type of responsibility to have contrition and to show compunction should have started with Stem Neoma to say, sorry, we are all in this together. Mistakes were made. How do we build a process of healing and nation building?
Indeed.
What people want is for Neoma's record not to be interrogated. What they want is for all of us to praise sing Neoma. That will never happen. It will never ever happen. What was interesting for me, Toys, is that, as you said, people have opinions. War vets.
That was going to be my last question actually to you, to say that you are awakening the sleeping lions.
Sleeping lions. First, I must say it's quite interesting how a former Roy Bender person is given so much space in a prominent newspaper. And he says it's personal for him when they touch, now look at the linguistics, Tatekulu. Therefore, he appropriates Neoma to an ethnocentric space. That is part of the problem. That's part of the narrative. Secondly, he says it's personal, as if Neoma has not also, and his decisions have not affected many other people personally. And therefore says, because it's personal, be careful what you are doing. Thirdly, the war vets coming and saying, I have no problem with them disagreeing with me diametrically. And saying, Swartbooi, you're out of line. It's their space. But when they conclude and say, be careful, it then triggers in me, together with the former Roy Bender, that from outside, we are lifting out guns to point to you in Parliament, that you actually may have immunities there, but what you are saying there, we are going to kill you outside for that. That is a very undemocratic approach. And I want to tell the war vets, you have done your part. You have contributed to freeing this country. Of course, it was the Cubans, the Russians, and whole geopolitical transformation that occurred that produced not a revolution, but merely a negotiated settlement. But you made a contribution. We have respected you. Not your taxpayers, not your tax money, but the tax money of us, the young ones, the middle-aged ones. We who pay tax, not you as war vets, we who pay tax are the ones that allowed our tax money to be used to pay you. And it's our tax money sustaining you. So the war vets had better be careful, because we are paying them. We are taking care of them out of respect. The same Neoma that they stand up and defend did not create the Ministry of Veterans Affairs. It was Hifikepunye Pohamba who created the ministry. If the war vets think they are still in some sort of war, they must be careful. I must also say this, that as Swartbooi, as I'm saying things, and when threats of that nature come, I have not seen the Inspector General or any other person in government saying, war vets, perhaps you have crossed the line.
Yeah.
But Nahazangula, who has failed as an education minister, whose policies resulted in over 200,000 people from 1990 being pushed out of grade 10, goes and says, I'm dividing the nation.
Yeah.
So when you look at those that have defended Nyoma, either a Roy Bender, a failed Minister of Education and a failed Prime Minister, old, archaic war vets who decide to be sectarian, this is the type of people that defend Nyoma, including Zaseb, who doesn't have support from his community and who's hoping so much to become chairperson of the Council of Traditional Leaders. These are the people that defend Nyoma. But I'm saying to the war vets, I'm giving you back your statement.
Yes.
And be careful about threats that you make.
Yeah.
Because maybe you see a simple guy speaking in parliament. But I come from a tradition and a history where self-defense is not an option.
Yeah.
If they want to afflict terror on the person and space of the political party I lead, we will return kindly that favor.
Yeah.
They must recognize that. They must not play with fire here. We have the capacity to defend ourselves decisively. And we have checked the names of each and every one of them that is on the poster. Perhaps they don't, in our view, even represent all war vets. But as a matter of fact, Toys, political debate will be heated in this country.
Sure.
We are a multicultural society. We have different interpretations of history. There is the genocide matter that has not been resolved. There is, as we said, a transition from racialism to tribalism, and we have to deal with all of these things.
Indeed.
In doing what we have to do, the intent is not to disrespect people. But those that do not want to be disrespected must demonstrate respect to our young people, whose future we are talking about.
Yes.
To the middle-aged ones, who pay tax and who have taken employment in government and who are frustrated with the failures of policy.
Yeah.
We must also ask those ones,
In conclusion.
That respect is not a one-way traffic.
Yes.
It is a very deliberate effort to build a nation and to unite society. I am wondering why Swartbooi party, at every instance of a strong debate in which they have lost the argument, always goes back to peace and stability that is being disturbed. Always goes back to an impending civil war, apparently. Why are they so afraid? What is the problem that they see parliamentary democracy as a threat to their rule? And the reason is the access to state power has meant access to material wealth. And when debates are so strong and they see the reality of losing state power, therefore diminished returns on their wealth, which they have accumulated illegally, they want to use the military to intimidate us. That's why they have given more money to the military to intimidate us. But for young people, I say this, just like you have been raised decently, I have been raised decently. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a strict disciplinarian, and in this journey that I am undertaking with young people and older, like, I want to tell the war vets, the passion you demonstrate for Sam Nyoma is probably the same passion, if not more, that I demonstrate for the constituents that have voted for LPM. I'm passionate about every young person there in Oluno, there in Katima, at Kongola, there at Okalongo, in Chess, in Beersheba, there in Tubuses, in Wolfish Bay, in Hobabas, in the shanty towns here in Windhoek. I have the same passion for that young person, for that old woman, for that poor person. And I will do everything necessary in Parliament to articulate those views.
Indeed.
The rest is up to you. So stand up, and thank you, young people. Stand up. We have an economy to build. We have a nation to build. We have a people to unite. The responsibility is with us. Remember what the president said. He said, young people are tribalists. Let's show them that we are the ones that will unite this country once and for all, and we will not look at each other from an ethnic lens, but from the lens of a truly one Namibia that is caring and dares to speak the truth so that we build a stronger and more compassionate society. Indeed. Please join the journey. Thank you, Toys.
Indeed. Thank you very much for coming through, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is the passionate always passionate Bernardo Swartbooi. He's the leader of the Landless People's Movement. You've heard every word that he said, and I hope you enjoyed the show like I did. Good night.
Good night.